Have you ever felt like you were working hard, following all the advice, doing everything right, but still, wealth never came? It's not your fault. Most people were handed a broken map. Worse than that, a wrong compass. They were told, get a job, work harder, save a little, retire someday. And yet, millions are doing just that, and still feel behind. Let me give you an image. Imagine someone walking with absolute confidence, but their compass is pointing south when they want to go north. No matter how fast they walk, they end up further from their goal. That's how most people live financially. So here's the question. What if the real secrets to wealth were never about working more, but about thinking differently? And what if you've been walking in the wrong direction all along? Stay with me because in this video we're going to uncover the mindset shifts, disciplines, and quiet truths that Jim Rohn believed were the foundation of true wealth, and they have nothing to do with luck or inheritance. As Jim Rohn once said, you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. If you're ready to shift that compass, like really shift it, hit that like button and let's begin. Most people treat wealth like a destination. They say, I want to be rich, as if it's something you chase down the street and finally catch. But let me tell you something Jim Rohn taught me early on, something that shifted everything. Wealth is not a goal. It's a result of who you become, a reflection of your habits, your philosophy, your discipline, not just your effort. Let me give you a metaphor. Trying to become wealthy by chasing money is like trying to catch butterflies with a baseball bat. You might swing all day and catch one or two, but you'll be exhausted, frustrated, and mostly empty-handed. Now picture someone standing still, holding a blooming flower. Butterflies come to them. That's what real wealth is. It's attracted, not hunted. I once knew a man who changed jobs every 6 months, always chasing a slightly higher salary. He moved cities, changed industries, constantly in motion. But 5 years later he had no savings, no skills he'd mastered, and was more burned out than ever. Then I met someone else who made half as much money, but invested in becoming valuable. They studied at night, improved their communication, learned how to manage their emotions, and built habits around consistency. 10 years later, he didn't just earn more. He owned businesses, had freedom, and could choose where to live, when to work, and what to say no to. That's what happens when you stop chasing wealth and start becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts it. Jim Rohn put it this way, if you want to be wealthy, study wealth. But more importantly, study yourself. So let me ask you, have you been trying to chase money instead of building the kind of person it flows to? Because that one shift, focusing on who you are instead of what you want, might just be the turning point you've been waiting for. And in the next section, we'll uncover the first internal shift that quietly transforms your financial reality. Have you ever walked into someone's home or workplace and felt the difference? Not because of the furniture or the brand of their phone, but because of how they carry themselves. That's the power of internal standards. And whether we realize it or not, we all live up or down to the standards we've set for ourselves. Jim Rohn used to say, you get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. The value is determined by your personal philosophy. Your standards are that philosophy in motion. Here's a simple metaphor. Your internal standard is like a thermostat. Let's say you set it to 72 degrees. If life cools down, you work a little harder, adjust, and warm things back up. If life gets too hot, maybe you get lucky or hit a big break. But your thermostat is still stuck at 72. Guess what? You'll unconsciously bring it all back down to your comfort zone. I once knew a man who landed a great opportunity, high pay, flexible hours, a clear growth path. But his internal standards were still stuck in minimum effort mode. He started showing up late, missing deadlines, making excuses. Within months he was gone. Now contrast that with a woman I knew who worked a basic retail job, but she treated it like it was a stepping stone to something bigger. She took pride in the small things. Today, she runs her own company. Here's the funny part. Some people think upgrading their phone every year shows they're growing. But if your thinking hasn't upgraded since 2015, your bank account probably hasn't either. So let me ask you, what's your current financial thermostat set to? And more importantly, are you willing to raise it? Because nothing external will ever rise higher than what you've accepted internally. Making money is only part of the equation. You can earn 6 figures a year and still feel broke. Why? Because wealth isn't about what you make, it's about what you keep and what you multiply. Let me give you a visual. Imagine someone pouring water into a bucket, but the bottom is full of holes. They pour more and more, but the bucket never fills. That's how most people handle money. They keep increasing income, but the leaks, bad habits, emotional spending, lack of planning, drain it all out. I knew a man who was brilliant at sales. Every month he made more than most people make in 3, but he had no system, no investments, no savings. Every raise came with a bigger car payment, fancier dinners, and more stress. Eventually, he was trapped in golden handcuffs, making a lot, but keeping nothing. Jim Rohn used to say, "It's not the amount that counts, it's the plan." Because someone with a small income but a clear, disciplined plan can build more wealth than someone with big numbers and no direction. Here's the twist. Most people think the problem is not making enough. But the real problem, they've never learned to multiply what they already have. So let me ask you, and I want you to leave this in the comments below, what's one small habit you've adopted that helped you grow your money or protect it better? It could be a budgeting trick, a mindset shift, or a daily rule you live by. Let's learn from each other. Because multiplying wealth isn't about genius, it's about discipline, perspective, and small, consistent moves. Most people are looking for the big break, the magic idea, the one investment that will make them rich overnight. But wealth, real lasting wealth, is never built in a moment. It's built in the small things you do daily, long before anyone notices. Think of yourself like a human version of compound interest. Every small discipline, every daily improvement, it builds on itself. And eventually the results are so big, people call it sudden success. I knew a woman who decided to track every expense for 90 days. Not glamorous, right? But by the end, she understood her patterns, cut her unnecessary costs, and freed up enough to start investing monthly. 5 years later, she had a solid portfolio, while her friends still wondered where their money was going. The problem is, small things feel boring. They don't look like progress. And in a world addicted to dopamine and quick wins, that discipline is rare. Here's the funny part. People will spend 30 minutes choosing the perfect filter for a photo, but won't spend 5 minutes reviewing their finances. That tells you exactly where their future is headed. Jim Rohn said, "Success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying the basic fundamentals." So let me ask you something that might surprise you. What's one boring habit you've done consistently that's actually made a difference in your life? You don't have to answer right now, but think about it. That boring habit might just be your superpower. In the next section, we'll explore something even deeper. How your emotional maturity around money can either build your fortune or quietly destroy it. Let's get real for a second. Most people's relationship with money is emotional, too emotional. They either fear it, obsess over it, or feel ashamed because they don't have enough. And that emotional instability, it's one of the biggest threats to long-term wealth. Jim Rohn once said, "You must either control your money, or the lack of it will forever control you." Money is not just numbers, it's energy. It reflects how we think, feel, and act. And when your emotions are tied too tightly to your financial highs and lows, it's like putting your life on a roller coaster with no brakes. Here's a metaphor I want you to remember. Money is like fire. Used wisely, it warms your home, cooks your meals, and brings comfort. Used recklessly, it burns everything down. I once met two people who earned the exact same income. One of them treated every financial dip like a crisis. If their bank account dropped below a certain number, they spiraled. Stress, arguments, fear. The other treated money like data. If something went wrong, they calmly adjusted, asked questions, and corrected their course. Guess who was still building wealth 5 years later? Money doesn't respond well to panic. It flows to people who make calm, rational decisions. And that comes from emotional maturity, knowing that your worth is not tied to your wallet, and your peace doesn't vanish when your balance shifts. So let me ask you, heart to heart, does your financial situation control your emotions, or do you control your financial situation? Because until you master your emotions around money, you'll keep repeating the same patterns, no matter how much you earn. In the next section, we'll dive into one of Jim Rohn's most misunderstood yet powerful principles, the 70-30 mindset shift that quietly changes everything. You may already know Jim Rohn's 70-30 rule, maybe you've even tried to follow it. But let me tell you something few people understand. This principle is not really about money. It's about training your character. Because anyone can write down a formula, but very few can live by it consistently. And that's the difference between wishing for wealth and becoming someone who builds it. Following the 70-30 isn't a financial exercise. It's a personal mirror. It reveals your relationship with control, discipline, and long-term vision. It shows you whether you live in survival mode or in creation mode. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine your financial behavior is a garden. The 70% is what you consume. The 10% you give is water for others. The 10% you invest is seeds for future fruit. And the 10% you save? That's your roots, your stability. If you skip any part, the garden suffers. But when you follow it, something inside you shifts. You stop living day to day and start living with design. Jim Rohn once said, "Discipline is the foundation upon which all success is built. Lack of discipline inevitably leads to failure." And this rule? It's a discipline test. Quiet, daily, deep. So let me ask you, not if you know the rule, but this: what does your current financial behavior say about who you're becoming? Because the 70-30 is not about the numbers. It's about whether you lead your money or let your emotions lead you. And coming up next, we need to talk about why, even with all this knowledge, so many people still feel stuck, and the secret few understand that unlocks it all. Maybe as you've been listening to all of this, you've had a quiet thought in the back of your mind. I already know some of this. I've read the books, taken the courses, stayed up late watching videos like this one. I've tried, but still, nothing seems to truly shift. And I want you to know, if that's how you feel, you're not alone. So many people are doing the work, putting in the effort, applying the right strategies, and yet they still wake up with that same frustrating feeling, like something is missing, like progress is just out of reach. It's not because you're not trying, and it's definitely not because you're not capable. The truth is, there's a part of wealth that doesn't live in books or spreadsheets or to-do lists. It lives deeper, beneath the surface of what we usually talk about. It's subtle, powerful, and invisible to those who are still chasing quick results. That's why two people can follow the same steps, and one of them still stays stuck. And that missing piece, the one most people overlook without realizing it. That's what we're going to explore next. Because if you've come this far, there's a reason. And what comes next might be the shift you've been waiting for all along. If something in this video made you pause, even for a second, don't let that moment pass. Because small shifts like that, when honored, can lead to the biggest transformations over time. Maybe it was a sentence, maybe it was a metaphor, maybe it was just the feeling that someone finally put into words what you've been sensing for years. Whatever it was, hold on to it. And if it meant something to you, Share it, first with yourself, then with someone else who might need to hear this too. This isn't just a channel for motivation. It's a space for people who are ready to build something real, quietly, consistently, and with intention. So if you found value here, go ahead and like this video, not for vanity metrics, but to signal that this is the kind of content that matters. Subscribe if you're done chasing empty noise and ready to build from the inside out. And in the comments, I'd love to know, what insight from today's video hit you the hardest? Let's talk, let's reflect, let's grow together. Because the truth is, most people will scroll past this and forget it ever existed. But you're not most people.